Yeah, so you'll fly up there, and you just have a 24, so you'll have to be moving along,
Yep.
right? And how you feeling?
Uh, I'm tired. I didn't get as much rest as I was hoping to get. Just trying to burn the candle on both ends and working, you know, and that's the funny thing is people when they learn that I do these, and especially if I'm doing them quite often,
Hmm.
like, oh, are you retired? It's like, no, I'm a working stiff. I got to do this on the weekend, and then during the week still, run a business, and just stayed up too late and got too little sleep. So I'll get a good night's sleep tonight, even though I'll be sleeping in a rental car, but still I can do that. So I'll get a good night's sleep. I'll be fine tomorrow. Just you know, a little tired, but the good thing is it's a simple course. It'll be good weather. There'll be no humidity,
Yeah,
and if I just keep moving along at a 13, 14-minute clip, I'm going to go out. Okay, I said this last time, but this
yeah,
time I'm really, really going to trying to stick to 12 to 14-minute miles, even from the beginning, 12 to 13-minute miles, and of course that'll slow. If I can keep 12 to 13-minute miles going, and then by the time I'm at the 50-mile mark on 13, 14-minute miles, then get beyond that, you know, I should have enough bank to where I could even do 15, 16-minute miles and still get in the 100 and the 24 without having to worry too much, as long as I don't go out too fast too soon. So that's
all
the
right.
plan.
Well, I are training, but the Badwater 146 was broken.
Did Harvey Lewis do it after all, huh?
Yes.
So I knew Marshall Ulrich had a 33 something. What did Harvey do?
Yeah, he beat it by about 20 minutes.
Ah,
So it was pretty fun. It was pretty cool to watch. I mean, follow along on Facebook and Twitter, and I did a few podcasts about it. So Harvey, decided to start when Marshall started at 6 o'clock in the evening, so that if he did break the record, he was going to have to finish up at Whitney at 2 or 3 in the morning. Brutal.
wow.
And
Wow.
from all reports, it sounded like he was doing pretty well throughout most of the run. Didn't really have too many issues. Got the Lone Pine going up. And as you well know, going up that 13 miles. Heck, I don't even like driving a car. That's a common thing. Driving a
Mm.
car up that thing, but you've done that many times, and we might actually have you describe that last 13 miles in a second here. So as he was going up there, he was kind of getting discouraged and wasn't sure if he was going to go for it. And then he thought, well, if I do a half a mile up the trail, at least I've gone further than I ever have at Badwater. And then he was also concerned, with safety. And but I believe it's now his wife. I think he proposed to her at her 1 year,
He
didn't he?
did.
Yeah,
Yes, he did at
yeah.
Badwater. Uh-huh.
So his wife said, you need to just keep going, do it. And so then Michael Jimenez was his pacer and crew throughout a lot of the race. And anyways, Michael, I guess, drove by him as he was going up the portal. And after he'd had some pep talks, when Michael drove by, he says, "Get your trail shoes on. We're heading to the top." So, and,
Uh-huh.
and Michael was very excited about that. And then another couple joined him. So he had a level of safety. So he had
Good.
Michael and then two other people. And Marshall had been riding his crew back and forth. And said, "Please call me before you head out." And so Marshall gave him a pep talk, and he said that, like, once he hit the trail, he was going along really good, and then you get to that trails crest part, and it just gets kind of fugly. And he said, you
Mm.
saw me the last half mile, it looked pretty bad, and it was pretty cold. And then when they finished, they got into the cabin up there.
Oh, they did stay at the cabin.
Yeah, well, they went in
Yeah.
there and stayed there for a while, and then I think he said it took him like 10 hours to get down, so it was pretty
Oh,
slow going. So, but
yeah.
yeah, so
Wow.
like describe. I mean, like when you get in the Lone, when you've done Badwater now 9 times, and when you get in the Lone Pine, how are you usually feeling, or is it all over the map?
Uh, it every year is different. Usually the good thing is once you get to Lone Pine, okay, it's just 13 miles, just a half marathon,
Yeah.
which, on a normal day, a half marathon, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, but,
Hmm.
different story because you're going from 3,000 foot elevation at Lone Pine to, what is it, 8,300 feet at the
Yeah,
top of Portal
a
Road.
mile climb. Yeah.
So you've got quite a bit of climbing. It's at first starts out not so bad, but then when you get to those switchbacks and it's
Yeah.
just like It's just like the never ending back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and higher and higher. And then you get up to tree line and that's nice. Now you get cooler weather but you're feeling it for sure. And you're just counting the miles down, counting the miles down. It's like, oh, I can't wait to be done with this.
And what kind of do you kind of know what you usually know your numbers, like what kind of splits you've done that last 13 in a range, like from
Um,
6 hours to 12 hours or,
you know what? I don't know my actual split, but I do know that I usually am pushing pretty strong on the power walk.
yeah,
I can usually knock out 15, 16-minute miles, which
that'd be
for
three and a
going
half hour.
uphill,
Yeah.
that's moving pretty quick. So I think that's probably about what I'm doing. Yeah, about 3.5 hours probably.
Yeah.
But
Because
I'm
16-minute
moving.
miles is 3.5 pace generally.
Yeah,
So,
I'm usually moving still pretty strong.
yeah.
I get like a second wind. Once you get past Lone Pine, you get that second wind because you can smell the barn
Oh, yeah.
and you can also typically if you can spot someone ahead of you, it's like, okay,
Mm,
that's my target. I just want to try and I can just catch that person and pass that person. So
yeah.
that I always like it when there's people out on the course because it gives me something to focus on, gives me an incentive to try
Hmm.
and you never know because there's three different waves. So
Yeah.
they could be someone who's in a wave behind you and they're still, even if you pass them, they're still going to be ahead of you. But
Yeah.
you'll figure that out. I mean, once you get close enough to where you can see their number, then your crew
Yeah.
can just look it up on the book and see what wave they started in.
Well, that's one of the advantages, and we've talked about this quite a bit on this podcast, is hey, all you ultra runners, practice walking, practice hiking, because you get out there and you just put it into walk mode and you can crank along. But you'll see a lot of those guys, and they're good runners, guys and gals. But when they got to start walking, they just, and yeah, I follow a lot of the people on Instagram and the internet, and you see them doing all this epic training. And I'm always like, how about going for some hikes? How about,
Yeah.
and they just get this mindset that I'm a runner. And I'm like, well, there's not a lot of people running the whole way. Occasionally, like the Japanese guy a year or two ago sure did blitz it. And every time I saw him, he was running like something like 10-minute miles or 10-minute
Yeah.
pace and
Crazy.
I the first time I ever actually witnessed Badwater finish. I took groups of people up hiking at Whitney. I probably told you this before, but went up there with a couple of ladies and we were going to hike the trail camp. And I kind of set up the date so that we would be there when Badwater finished. And so we're driving up the Whitney Portal Road and we see this long-haired guy with long hair, and we stop and we cheer him on. And it was Michael Wardian.
Oh, wow.
First time I'd ever seen Michael Wardian in person. This
Huh.
is probably like 2011. And
Yeah.
so, and it was so funny, like when we're getting out of the car, one of my athletes is like, make sure you got your keys because it's a long walk back to town. And she said that like right when Michael's going by. He's at a mile 128 or something, and she's worried about walking 2 miles to and
Yeah.
but then we drove up the road and we caught, I think there was an Asian guy up the road. And then we found out like the Wardian wasn't winning. We were like, oh, he's third. And then they're like, yeah. And then when we passed the other guy, and then we got to the portal, we passed the guy who was in first, and he had a huge entourage of friends and everything there. And it was Oswaldo Lopez.
Oh, yeah.
And he
Oh,
won,
that was the year he won.
yeah.
Okay.
And I had heard of Oswaldo, but I didn't know him. And then, of course, a year or two later, I crewed for him at Badwater Salton Sea. So I got to know him really well, and I'm a great guy.
But he lives in the Central Valley, doesn't he? Not
Yes,
too far north of you?
yeah, I live in Bakersfield, and then there's Fresno is a bigger city, and then right above Fresno is called Madera, and he lives in Madera.
Okay.
So yeah, so I ended up know him real well, and he's such a great guy. And so and I remember just seeing him finish, and then it was truly amazing. Like he finishes, he did it in like 24 hours, and I just remember like he's being interviewed by Chris, the race director, and he's answering the questions like he just got up, have a
Done a
nice
5
day.
miler.
Yeah, no, not even run. Like he just kind of like,
Uh,
went to work. I mean, and just bang, 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 completely coherent, just, phenomenal how he was just so composed and like he didn't even look like yeah, it was truly amazing. And then of course, telling stories about him, but Oswaldo, the year he had that battle with someone else we talked about, Mike Morton, who came back after being gone for 20 plus years, and
Yeah.
they battled back and forth, and Mike beat him by only a minute or two on that
Mm.
race a year or two later. And after the race, when Oswaldo finished, he took his bib off and gave it to Mike, because Oswaldo was wearing bib number 1,
The one. Yeah.
and he gave it to Michael. So good stuff
Yeah.
there. But maybe you can go into some of the other, besides the, you can briefly go over what the entry fee is, but then kind of give people an idea of like what's the cost and what other things you've got to take care of.
Sure. Well, the entry fee, it's when I did it first in 2011, I think it was $9.99, and now it's $14.99. And some of us veterans are a little bit nervous because it's been there for a while,
Mm-hmm.
which means it's probably ripe to go up. Who knows? We'll see what Chris does, but whatever he makes it, there's always going to be people that are going to want to do it no matter what. It's just the way it is. It's such a unique race, and it has that reputation. And it's, I was going through TSA, and I had
you're wearing the shirt.
my Badwater shirt on, and one of the TSA agents is like, "Oh, Badwater," and most people have no clue what it is. And I said, "Oh, are you familiar with that?" "Oh, yeah." He said, "I follow the race all the time. Have you done it?" And then, of course, we started chatting once he found out about that. So people who know about it, they really they know about it. So there's an entry fee, and then, of course, you're going to need to have a vehicle. Most people rent a van, although Carla goes in some, I don't know how she does it.
We did it in a Prius.
And a little Prius. And Danny Westergaard, same thing.
Yeah.
He'll go in a little compact car, and he has his cousin who flies every year. And then Patrick Sweeney will sometimes be his crew, or last year he had his daughter, and that was it, 2 people. Carla, usually it's her and her daughter and one other person maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how I ended up. We ended up having a couple more people, but
So that's, I mean, if you can do that to save some money. So if you can bring a car, that saves you. But we rent a van, so you got the van rental, and then you check in Sunday. So that means, and the race doesn't start till Monday night. So then you've got to have a hotel for Sunday night. And if you stay at Furnace Creek, the rates there are like $180 for a room. And then there's whatever Death Valley taxes there are. So it's $200 a night. And if you have crew, you're probably going to have 2 rooms. So that's $400 a night. So what some of us do is either Beatty, which is in Nevada, but it's like 40 miles away from Furnace Creek, or go back into Pahrump, which has a lot of options of very cheap. And then what we've done the last couple of years is we've actually done an Airbnb.
Yeah, I remember that.
We rent a whole house for less. And then a lot of times they're really cool about, like, if you stay at Furnace Creek or any hotel, their checkout is 11 a.m. Well, if your race isn't until the first race is 8, and then the second wave is 9:30, and I'm now usually in the second wave, and the third wave is 11 p.m.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? Hang out in your car for hours? So then if you rent for a second day and you only use half of it, but the Airbnb, a lot of times those people are really cool.
Yeah.
And especially once they know what you're doing. Every time I've told them that, they're like, "Oh yeah, go ahead. You could." I asked, "Can I pay you extra and stay till mid-afternoon?" And they're always like, "Yeah, you don't have to pay me. Just go ahead and stay. You're fine." And so you got that expense. But then at the other end, when you finish the race, then you have at least one night. And what we'll sometimes do is get a hotel room for Tuesday night, because I'm always thinking that I'm going to be faster than I am. So I want to have one ready, because if you don't book one up, you're out of luck. They're all booked up. So you've got to have one booked. And then we end up just throwing that away basically, because we don't use it. And then so Wednesday night, and again, another couple of rooms. So yeah, you start adding up. Typically, Chris will do a survey at the end of most years, and typically people spend $5 to $10 grand to do Badwater. Now, that's people who also are flying from out of state. It's my backyard, so I don't have any of that expense. We've got it down to, I think you can't do anything about the entry fee. The entry is what it is, so that's set. But I think we got our other expenses, the car rental, the hotels, all the food, ice. You spend easily $100 or more just on ice alone. But I think we got it down to around a grand on all the expenses that we have
Hmm.
outside of the entry fee. And, you know, if we cut back on one or two crew, we could maybe save a little bit of money. But the thing I think is important with the crew is that's an opportunity for someone who's interested in doing Badwater,
Yes.
but doesn't really know. And so to have an opportunity to come out and crew, because that's how I started. I crewed for
Yeah.
Brian Recor in 2010, and I got a feel for it. It's like, okay, yeah, I definitely want to do this. But having
Yeah.
that opportunity, so it's kind of like when you are the runner, it's your way of sort of paying it forward, is allowing people who are interested in maybe entering Badwater at some
Yes.
point to be able to come and crew for you and get that experience.
Well, and it's also part of the entry process. It's one of the
It
questions.
helps.
Have you crewed,
Yes.
paced, volunteered at the race?